But I do want to hit on this. We talked about it earlier, affiliated guys, and I think there's this big thing. It's like people think that affiliated guys are better than some. The best player in this league has never been to an affiliate.
Never.
Hands down the best player.
Hands down, no doubt the best player.
But anybody would look like, oh, this guy's got 1 year affiliated experience. He's got to be better than this guy who never had it, but he hits. It's like, no. And that's what's fun watching the Y'alls team.
I'll say it on the air. He's better than Brandon Phillips.
Oh,
in this league. Better than Brandon Phillips.
100%.
Craig Massey is better
If you're taking a guy that's going to play second base in your all-star team,
taking Craig Massey over Brandon Phillips.
Brandon Phillips is going to DH. He would DH, and Craig would play second.
Hey, what's up, Florence Nation? Welcome back inside the suites here at UC Health Stadium. You are watching episode 7 of the Game Report. I'm Aaron Brodie from left to right on your screens. Hitting coordinator Mike Morris. Dennis Pelfrey, the legendary manager of the Freedom and also the manager of the San Jose Giants and the San Francisco Giants organization. Now moving to the right of the screen, the heralded Brian White, manager of the Y'alls, and of course the great Chad Rhoades, pitching coordinator here in the Battle of the Bourbon Trail. It's going to be a fun episode today. You've gotten to see the coaches all season long kind of break down the players, break down the season, and dive into some other fun topics along the way. We're not going to have any less fun today, I assure you, but we are going to start this episode talking about the most recent series. It was another Freedom Y'all series to finish up the regular season in the Battle of the Bourbon Trail, and my goodness, it couldn't have been broken down any better. The top spot in the regular season was on the line entering the final weekend of the season right here at UC Health Stadium. You've been well aware of the fact that Florence has been dominating the Battle of the Bourbon Trail, but they still had to decide a victor. It would ultimately be the Freedom, taking 2 of 3 on the weekend series from the Y'alls, but there's a lot more inside that series than just the outcome over the weekend. So we'll start with Chad, as we typically do. Going into this series, the pitchers were always in a pool to themselves. Y'alls, Freedom, pitchers, almost 3 different teams. That went out the window for this big series. You divided it up. Talk to us about the pitcher draft.
I really cut myself off from them, as this series went on. I really wanted to see them take full responsibility. You're on your own team. This is the way it would be in a regular season. How are you going to survive when you're not getting little reminders and daily kind of affirmation, seeing how they settle into their bullpen, how they settle into their roles on a specific team, and see how they want to play competitively. It was cool to have them take the gloves off. It's like, take the gloves off. This is the last series. This is what you've been working for. Let's see your work come into play against hitters that you've seen, that you know how to expose, that you know how to use your tools against. And you saw that all 3 games. Like, it was a very good, clean baseball game on the pitching side, as far as some guys got hung with some crooked numbers, but some guys pitched out of some jams. So we got a mix of both, and we got to see guys try and do what it was that they came in to do over the course of the season. And it made for a really good game. Like, it forced hitters to have an approach, and it exposed the ones who didn't. Like, it was really cool. And it started off. We had that first game was beautiful. I mean, Hayden Wheeler right there, and then we had to flip and had AJ starting on the other side because Lars, had a little late night call to us that he said he might not be able to go because his knee felt tight, and he ended up coming in and shoving. Like, really, really cool game. I want to let you guys talk because I'll bounce off the pitchers because there's some stuff they did.
No, it was nice having AJ step in there, and I think later in the day, as the game got closer, Lars talked to us about he could go, but at that point we'd already made the decision with Clayton, and Clayton already knew he was starting, so I didn't want to take that away from him. But going into it, I mean, he had thrown 20-something pitches 2 days before, so we knew he wasn't going to be able to go long, but he gave us a chance to win, and that's what we talk about all the time. Just give us a chance.
Kind of in the spirit of fantasy football, a lot of people drafting their teams these last couple of weeks. Did it kind of take on that sort of a feel in the war room, B. White?
Yeah. So with the pitchers, kind of revisiting that, they're kind of put in a pool where we got to pick from. Chad presented, here's the starters, here's the mid.
3 separate groups, right?
Right. Here's a long relief, and here's a short relief right here. And we can kind of pick and choose what we wanted. We had to get through a certain list of guys first before we get to another list. But, we did the snake draft where he had the better record at the time, so he got the first pick. I got second and third, then third, and he got fourth and fifth, and so on and so forth until we ran through all the pitchers. So it was interesting to see, the routes that we took on, this is our starter, so this is kind of what we need for our bullpen. With kind of the unknowns. So he kind of got loaded on the back end. I went more mid-relief, long inning guys, and I wanted to see how that would work. A little bit of a balance on my bullpen, where I knew if his starters were going to go deep, then he had a good chance of winning that game because he had the back end loaded in the bullpen. So the mindset and the draft was fun. It was interesting. Took two different approaches to it, and obviously came to be a pretty good series.
Who was the first pick in the draft?
Joe Doherty,
the closer, the hammer. Who was your first pick?
I went with, who did I go with? I think I went with
Craigie, I thought.
No, I went mid-relay. I think I went with Craigie and maybe McDonald or Pearson.
You might have went.
I knew I needed the longer innings in the bullpen, so I wanted to make sure I had length versus I didn't want to get in trouble on that second or third day being short, so I ended up going with the longer guys.
Well, there was no shortage of talent in that pitching staff all season long. Both sides were really loaded up for this.
I thought they were pretty even.
The games were great. I mean, obviously the first two, kind of heavyweight fight back and forth. Talked about it on air last night, and then got to see it from above last night. First time I've ever been in the booth, and obviously it was a much more high-scoring game, but it was still that heavyweight bout. The Y'alls score, and then the Freedom come right back, and then Y'alls score 7, and it's like, the game should be out of hand in the 7th inning. And it goes back to that thing where everybody talks about, you're up 7 runs in the 7th inning, shouldn't be stealing, shouldn't be doing this, and how quickly the game changed. It was a 1-run game right after the bottom half. So that's where the game's changed. And in the first 2 nights, they're more pitching defense. Last night, more offense. I mean, you saw everything you could see from both clubs, how good of an offense each team they were, because both of them are a little bit different, the offenses. But you saw the great things in both those offenses last night. You saw the great thing in both defenses, the 2 nights before, and obviously the pitching was great. Even in the offensive game last night, the pitching, they made pitches when they needed to. And obviously coming in, Tripp came in last night and had the 2 innings of shutout baseball to give the Freedom a chance. Obviously it didn't work out, but it's fun to watch.
It was a familiar sight for sure to see Jonathan Tripp out there dealing in the later innings. We'll get Mike Morris in the discussion here. Obviously, we've seen all season long a little bit of a different breakdown when you're looking at the offenses from the Freedom to the Y'alls. If you want to talk to us a little bit about the approaches on both sides and kind of how they differed this season and certainly in this series.
Yeah, I mean, they're 2 different teams. You got one side where a little bit older guys with the Freedom, been around the block a little bit. They understand what they're doing at the plate. More on the power side of the game, like they're going to hit a lot more home runs. They're going to score a lot of runs. Not saying the Y'alls don't, because they do, but they just manufacture different, right? So, on the Y'alls side, they're younger. I think we can get a little bit better at some of the approaches, which I think collectively they got way better at throughout the year. Still got work to do with that, but they're going to play small ball. They have to play with the speed. Then we're going to steal bases. We're going to put the bunts down. So the difference between 2 teams, that's where it's really fun, because they are 2 totally different spectrums, but can score a lot of runs in their own special way.
Shows you how dynamic baseball can be.
Yeah.
You don't have to be. It goes back to the thing where I think you hear it all the time, is these guys like, this scout from my high school told me I had to hit home runs to play left field. It's not true. It's not true. Like, you can be who you are and make it to the big leagues. You know what I mean? As long as that skill set gets, the progression in that skill set goes to where it needs to go, and you can be the best player you can be. And then obviously it comes down to a lot of luck too, getting in those spots. But you should never change who you are to try to impress somebody else.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that stood out very well in that point is, though there might have been a difference in the approaches and the way they played the game, there was very minimal by way of difference in their season-long records this season. The Florence Freedom ultimately end up winning the top spot in the regular season standings, 22-13, the final record for the Freedom this year. The Y'alls right on their heels, a half game out of first place at 22-14. That, of course, was decided in Game 2 of the series on Saturday night.
I mean, if you're going to write a book, when we put this thing together, before it happens, of how it could have worked out for the city of Florence and the 2 teams, it couldn't have been any better. And I mean, the record, 1 loss difference, 1 run difference in the final game. I mean, unbelievable. It gives me goosebumps just talking about it. Just how it worked out, how good it was for everybody. I mean, this was literally a spring training type atmosphere for a major league organization, and we did everything that they would do as well, getting guys better. I think virtually everybody got better. I don't think anybody had any problems falling backwards in their skill set, So it was nice.
Everybody had to play a role, and everybody had to do their job to be able to create their record and what happened over the course of the season. So it was cool. Everybody had to play their part up until then.
Yeah, Greg Taggart calling me right now for the South Shore Railcast. Probably wanting to sign
the mentor and coaching.
Sign a couple players. Yeah, so
sure.
We're gonna end the call.
Well, B-White, talk to us a little bit about the Y'alls. 22-14 on the season, but it really did seem like where maybe the Freedom entered day one, kind of a well-oiled machine off the bat. Your team took a little bit more time to find themselves.
Right.
But man, once they did, you could really see how special they were, rattling off wins. The Lexington Legends only won 1 game against you guys here at UC Hell Stadium.
Even with their new roster.
It didn't matter. Brandon Phillips and all those guys, Eric Young, DeJesus, it was still Y'all's victory after Y'all's victory here at UC Hell Stadium. Talk to us a little bit about the development of the team this year. It was a bunch of guys from different walks of life. Maybe didn't have all the affiliated experience that Pelfrey had on the Freedom, but man, just a half game out of the standings, no less success really.
Yeah, and I think the guys kind of got tired of hearing that floating around, the clubhouse, other teams, is we don't have these affiliated guys. We shouldn't. Guys that we shouldn't be competing with, blah, blah, blah. And I think it kind of, lit a fire under them a little bit. How to compete, Our mindset in the dugout and the clubhouse was never that we shouldn't belong here. It kind of frustrated me after that second game of the series. I'm getting text messages and people telling me, hey, congratulations, y'all did a good job, y'all made a good run at it, but none of us felt like that we didn't play to get it, So that word was going around early in the season that, Freedom have this, Freedom have that, y'all are doing a good job, blah, blah, blah. But we all felt like we deserved to win. We put in the work, we were making adjustments. Chad's got the arms under control, Mike has the hitters under control. We're working, we're getting better, and we have a really unique tool, which is our speed, so we can maximize that and be able to create runs and take care of the baseball and play good defense. And there's no reason why we can't compete with, the Lexington Legends with their big leaguers, or affiliated guys with the Freedom, or the Landis too have plenty of affiliated guys, so on and so forth. So it turned out to be a good, we had good chemistry in the club, I guess in the dugout, not the clubhouse this year, but they bought into it, they wanted to compete, they wanted to win, and everybody felt like that they belonged there. There was no doubt in any of our guys' heads that, we can't win this thing. So from after the first week of the season, where they're not getting the love that maybe other players or other teams are getting, it kind of, frustrated them a little bit. So we want to come out, show out, and play well. And, they did. We made a run at it, for half a game short, but that's how it goes. That's baseball,
A half a game short and 1 more game played on the season. So is your protest, written out yet? Powers that be?
There's, we had the 14 losses on the year, and we talk about it, especially in the office. You never know when that one game that you could have won earlier in the season can make a difference. We always talk about that one play, that maybe that one pitch selection, that one at bat, where we take one play off, how that can impact the whole season. And we saw that. We felt half a game short. So there's plenty of things that we could have done early in the season where maybe we did win 2 or 3 of those games that we end up losing, where the season gets flipped. Maybe we do win if we take care of those little things early in the year. So it doesn't come down to that last series. Obviously, that's where all the focus is on that last series, because the winner that takes 2 out of 3 wins the league. But there's other games that took place throughout the course of the year that maybe if we did one little thing different, that maybe we do win that game, and the season turns out in our favor versus the Freedom's favor.
It's like, for me, a perfect example. I just like living in the now. I mean, I know Mike knows. Like the Cowboys game last night.
Oh boy!
I think everybody in Dallas right now is talking about the pass interference. It's not why you lost the game. And
he's talking to me right now.
I thought we were talking about the Cowboys on the show.
Brian, I'm going to smile when Brian's talking about a game earlier in the season, because it's exactly right. Like there's a play in the second quarter or whatever. Those things are dictating the game. And like you said it perfect. There's always that time. I remember in 2018 we were, I think, 1 game short of making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that first series of the year we lose a game where we played terrible or we did something really dumb,
right.
you know, and we lose a game, that's the difference. It's not that last game of the year. We got to go into that last series, win 2 out of 3 in River City in 2018. We ended up getting swept, but we could have handled that a lot sooner and made it to where we didn't have to win 2 out of 3. We could be preparing for the playoffs. So that's kind of what he's talking about, and it always comes back to that. And you can always dissect the season as a coach, I think, and as a manager, you always go back and dissect the season or dissect the game and figure out at what point was the game turned. And it's never the 9th inning or never the last game of the year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it gets a lot of focus. You know, we always talk about, too, you know, game 38 is just as important as game 96.
Yes.
So we want to beat that in our players' heads that every game is so important, every pitch is so important. It doesn't just come down to that last series. There's different things that, you know, we could do better throughout the course of the year.
And the 10-run lead is just as important as the 1-run lead, right?
It's always.
So that's why we talk about closers, and I think Chad can touch on this a little bit. The closer, we don't really like to call closers here. We don't, because they're just guys that finish the game. So whether it's a 10-run lead or a 1-run lead, those are just as important. And you see it all the time in the big leagues. Like if a guy brings in their closer and it's a 5-run lead, they're like, oh, the mindset's different. It shouldn't be. No, it should not be. You're shutting the door of the game regardless. So those are important. And you see it all the time. Guys, teams lose. And I think in 2016 we lost a game. We were up 8 runs to the Evansville Otters in the 7th inning here, and we lost the game. So that's how important, and that might have been why we didn't make the playoffs in 16. You know what I mean? So those are the things that need to happen and need to be stressed. And just like he said, game 38 is just as important as game 96. The 10-run lead is just as important as the 1-run lead.
Well, the coaches are getting fired up, and I'm loving to see it because it's kind of a perfect segue into the next topic. We'll, in a lot of ways, kind of continue a similar discussion, but I want to talk about the meaning of winning the regular season championship in the Battle of the Bourbon Trail. We called it all season long in the broadcast. Maybe this is an error in judgment on my part, but we call them the standings that don't really matter because at the end of the year, you know you're going to have the All-Stars from Florence versus the All-Stars in Lexington. The standings don't really enter the equation, but man, that could not have been any more false when you look at how much it meant to the Freedom, how much it meant to the Y'alls going into that last series. I want everybody to feel free to comment on this. We'll start with Mike, but just kind of your view on how much it meant to the guys down there to win this series and win the standings.
I mean, go back to what Herm Edwards talked about, you know, years ago. Like, you play to win the game, period. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it comes down to. It's competition. Like, whether you're practicing, whether you're playing games, whether it's Frontier League, whether it's Bourbon Trail, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? You're going out there every day with a Game 7 mindset.
The wiffle ball games, too.
Same thing. Like, if you're not doing that, then what do you do? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my thought. Like, whether, like, you have to go out there and play to win. Like,
true competitors
standings
compete,
always matter.
man.
Yeah, players play, baby. Like, go out there and just compete.
I think so what makes this culture so good here is the competitiveness we put into everything we do. Whether it's hitting off the tee, taking the ground balls, the double plays, the triple plays, everything they're working on, the competitiveness. Because you have to create, and this is where affiliated organizations, this is where hopefully, you know, I can bring some of this to the Giants next spring training, is where you can bring in, obviously everybody's trying to get better and progress, you know, and they're going to work on this, work on that. But if you can mix in the competitiveness to it and have that environment, is exactly what we had here. It works for everybody. Everybody's going to get better. Everybody's going to be competing. And at the end of the day, in the first game of this series, I mean, we split the bullpens up this time too. You could feel it in the game. You could feel the push and the pull in that heavyweight bout. You know, every pitch had something hinging on it, you know, and it was like, hold your breath. You know, you could feel
it. Felt like a real playoff game.
Yeah.
It felt nice, especially good crowds Friday, Saturday night.
The cool weather.
Electricity.
Friday.
Yeah, it felt like playoff baseball, which it should. You know, it should.
And even yesterday's game, from the booth, it had the feel. Even though the championship was over or whatever, it had a feel. Because I brought it up there, like, if the Y'alls win, they're going to have the same number of wins. You know, so that's something to play for. Because I think you said something like, you know, this game doesn't mean much. It wasn't what you said, and you weren't downplaying it. But I wanted to make sure the fans knew that we're listening. Like, this is a big game because they could have the same number of wins. You got Mike first managing job versus Max's first managing job. So there's something on the line there for those two guys. I mean, and you could feel it in the press box. Like, it was awesome. It was.
And Max kept asking me questions in the dugout, like, well, what do you think about this? I was like, Max, it's your team, man. Play to win. Like, you got to play to win right here. Like, you do what you need to do to win this game. He said, okay.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
your guys' comments kind of on the magnitude of these games, even in the regular season for the Y'alls and Freedom.
Like watching up top, I got to watch all three, and like we've said it, each pitch meant something. It did. Like they understand by now. To me, when I got to watch that, and when the game was played like that, especially against ourselves, it's like, man, they got it. The point was made of the season. That's what I was telling Dennis. It's like, man, you're right. You're really gonna like watching all the pieces move, like seeing what the philosophy and the way that they need to go about the game and the professionalism of the PA and the video and the crowd and the lights and the stadium and the competition. This is real, pure baseball. And each pitch meant something. Each pitcher knew that. So he's pitching to the count. The hitter's working the count. It's like, he's got execute right here. He's behind. He knows it. Can he make the pitch? Nope. Left it up. Hitter took advantage. So it was that the whole way through, and that's baseball. So for me to get back and watch, I'm not looking at guys' stuff anymore. I'm not looking at deliveries. I don't care about that. Is he invested in the game? Like, is he in the baseball game? Like, is he pitching to win? Because does he know that every single pitch matters? And he was like, yes. He was like, they all knew each pitch mattered, and that was really cool to watch.
Well, what was really cool, and I don't mean to cut off that part of it, and this is something that hadn't really been talked about. Really cool about our side. I don't know how Lexington did their side. They were supposed to do a pitcher's pool like we did. This is how it was talked about before the thing started. Basically 3 teams at each spot. Position players, and pitchers. Same thing. And have a pitching coordinator. I don't think they did theirs that way because you saw the same pitchers throwing for the same teams. So what was really cool about what we did here is Chad set up the parameters for each arm. Like he can only go three innings, 55 pitches or whatever. So as managers, we had to work around those things. That's part of the development side, the progression side. We had to mix in the winning side. And I would talk to my position players about it all the time. Like, hey, this guy has to throw here, and he has to throw these many innings. So if he blows up, he blows up. We got to take the blow, and we got to come back. And that kind of created that competitiveness and understanding. Because you see it a lot of times where teams have, Lexington sending an arm out there, they're not doing the same thing that we're doing, and the guy's just getting shelled, and you just keep running them out there. Their position players are like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So our guys had an understanding knowing, hey, we're going to have to take some blows because these guys are trying to get better along with competing and trying to win, and it still worked out to where we absolutely dominated them. You know what I mean?
It's because they know the pitcher's strengths. Like, there's certain guys that go out there, this guy, he's a sinker ball type of guy, or this guy's a slider guy. He's going to stay predominantly away, so we got to, there's going to be stuff hit on the ground hard this way. We need to be on it. And so they knew that. And that's what being the team was, and I think that was what was cool when you separate those bullpens, because all the defensive players and everybody on the team knows what types of pitchers that they have, and it's like, hey, this is what we got to do on this guy. You're like, let's bear down. And so that was cool to see. It's like over there, it's like they don't know who's throwing, and dude's out there just wearing it. It's like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing, and it's like, this is not baseball. It's not conducive to creating a good environment, and it turns into that showcase at bats and turns into all that. But I do want to hit on this. We talked about earlier, affiliated guys, and I think there's this big thing. It's like people think that affiliated guys are better than some. The best player in this league has never been to an affiliate.
Never.
Hands down the best player.
Hands down, no doubt the best player.
But anybody would look like, this guy's got 1 year affiliated experience. He's got to be better than this guy who never had it, but he hits. It's like, no. And that's what's fun watching the Y'alls team.
I'll say it on the air. He's better than Brandon Phillips. In this league. Better than Brandon Phillips.
100%.
Craig Massey is better
If you're
than
taking a guy that's going to
Phillips.
play second base in your all-star team,
Taking Craig Massey over Brandon Phillips.
Brandon Phillips is going to DH. He would DH, and Craig would play second.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be what it was. But it's like when we talk about those teams, and you guys didn't have as many affiliated guys, and they understood, they got that just because they're affiliated doesn't mean he's any good. Mm-hmm. He's a man, he's a baseball player, has holes, he has weaknesses, and then they start focusing on their own strengths instead of worrying about, oh, God, we're facing this guy. It's like, no, go back to you. What are you good at? Because you can still get him out with your stuff. You can still pitch these guys.
You see it happen, too. You see it happen on the mound. It's like the ghost thing, like, I don't know, one of the movies you can see where you can kind of see it enter into him. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, there it is. He kind of just cleared the mechanism type thing in the movie, So it's like, oh, I can relax and I can pitch and I can hit and I can do these things because now you're taking away what this guy is. Oh, I got to face Brandon Phillips. And then if you take that out of it, it's like, oh, he's just a man. Like, he's just a guy. Right?
Before we segue to the next phase of the show, I do want to get B. White's comments. You already kind of talked about it a little bit, but the standings certainly mattered to the Y'alls all season long.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all have the same mindset where we want to win. We're here to win, right? We want to get better, but to get better, if you are getting better, you're going to win games. So developing players, developing their weaknesses, understanding their strengths, and then once it goes to game time, it's like, okay, let's let it loose, let's compete, and let's go out there and win. That's the end goal. If you're a competitor, that's all that matters to you, right? No matter what you're doing, whether you're playing baseball, whether you're playing chess or checkers, whether you're playing video games, a spelling contest, it doesn't matter. Like, we don't get into it, but we always want to win. We want to beat each other all the time. So it's that same mindset with the players. We instill that into their heads, like all that matters is to win. If you're winning, then you're doing something right. So if we're developing guys during batting practice or during bullpen sessions or during throwing programs or whatever it may be, yes, we want to see that transition to the games, but the only way that's going to transition is by repetitive work and early work. And once we get to the games, let it loose, and you'll slowly see the development take place throughout the course of the year. It's not going to happen overnight where guys think that it does. It's going to take time. So if you have that mindset and the early work, go out to the game, just let loose, want to win, do whatever it takes to win, then you see the guys develop and they start understanding, they start buying into themselves and into their teammates, and they start believing that they can win. So that's really what it comes down to, in my opinion, is what are you going to do to help this team win? And if you're able to do that, then you're developing.
Mm-hmm.
Developing yourself, we're just giving them the tools to do it. We talked about it a couple of shows ago, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of development, that's the next phase of the show. I want every coach sitting here at this Iron Cast in the episode 7 of Game Report to give us your most improved player from day one, maybe the little week of spring training that you guys got before the Battle of Bourbon Trail started, to where we sit today, 1 week away from the start of the best of 3 All-Star series. But it doesn't have to be an All-Star, just the guy that came the farthest for you this season. We'll start with Mike.
Man, there's so many dudes. Mitch Piotnik comes to mind. Struggled early, but then really kind of found himself a little bit, and towards the end kind of fell off, but really started figuring some stuff out. Brandon Pugh made a huge jump, I think, in just really his overall game. Like, he was onto it at the end of last year, but this year I think he made a really good run at it, and learned a lot of things about himself. There's so many dudes that, like, everybody got better. Belsky, he really got better, especially on the defensive side. Mm-hmm. Just going out there, he was really rusty. You can tell he hadn't learned as much, but every single day, man, he just got smoother and smoother and smoother, and his bat started looking better towards the end, and, I think every single dude that was in this thing developed. They got better from start to the finish, and that's a testament to how hard they worked. Like going to practice, and you watch the pregame BPs and stuff like that. Like, I know I'm supposed to pick one player, but I can't, because literally everybody really developed. But you watch like the practices and how they went to work, man, it was really impressive. Like, on everybody, like they
can't
came
pick
out
one.
And did it.
You got one.
Cannot pick one.
Cannot pick one.
Come on, I got one.
Okay, let's go to Chad. We'll bounce to Chad. Most improved player. Most improved pitcher.
Okay. I know, yeah.
No, I don't mind. So, this dude came in and had our individual meeting about 3 or 4 days ago. And I was like, man, you got here. I was like, I thought you were an absolute savage, and you're never going to throw a strike. I'm never going to see those strike consistently at all. It's like, but man, I wonder what happens if this guy figures it out, keeps things simple. Alex Wagner. Easy. Like, you put the dude on the mound now. Like, hey,
put him in a big spot Friday night, right? Saturday?
Big spots. And he shines in those big spots. He's like almost immune to understanding
the magnitude
of the situation, and that like makes him grow, and it makes him attack, and it gives him like a little bit of swag. We saw him walking off doing the Conor McGregor shimmy after a punch out. But he lined things up. It was like, for a guy like that, big body, good frame, mean intentions and wants to work, like wants to get better. And so I had to spend a week or two just to make sure, like, it was like, is this real? Is he going to come every single day? Does he understand what being a professional is? Is he going to wear the right stuff every day? Is he going to be on time? So that type of stuff is what filters through my head to see who actually cares and gets it. And we had a lot of dudes that way. And so, but Wags was there and gave him short things to work on in the throwing program and little things each week. So one little thing, Wags, no, slow down. One thing at a time. One thing at a time. And you look at him now, he was not a pitcher coming in. And I'm still can't sit there and say that he's a pitcher. He knows how to pitch. Like, he understands the counts and what it means to get ahead, and it's developing his stuff as far as off speed. And but you can line him up now. His delivery's clean. He's coming at you. He's going to be in the zone. He's going to cut. He's still wanting to white knuckle it and throw the hell out of it, and he does. And it's hard to hit. He's hard to square up. Wags is my most developed guy from beginning to somebody who understands, who's a baseball player now, who's a pitcher, who's mean in leverage spots. He's went longer too, but not afraid to put him in any spot against any situation against any guy because it's hard to square up. I wouldn't want to face it. It's scary as bad.
Wags gets the nod. Be White.
I'm going to go with an arm. Actually, there's two guys I want to mention. One's Kenny Pearson. Mm-hmm. Coming in, looking up his numbers. Okay, we got a guy, but what is he going to be? He came in towards the end of the season almost a dude. He's flirting with that label on him. He's made tremendous progress. I think he cleaned up his
direction, posture
direction
a little bit.
To the plate a little bit. And you're starting to see those walks disappear a little bit. And he's turning into a ground ball machine. That's been very impressive. And then Jackson Owens, my other guy. Those that saw him last year compared to this year, it's night and day different. Tempo got 10 times better. The confidence got better. The fastball.
He's got ice in his veins too.
Ice.
It's nice. Like last year, he goes out there. The presence isn't on the mound. Now you send him out there and you feel confident in him. This guy's going to go 6-7 innings tonight. Maybe give up 1 or 2 runs. He's going to absolutely shove for me. So seeing those two guys develop from the beginning of the season to where they're at now, been pretty eye-opening to me.
Yes, back to Chad.
Class. I said this on one of the earlier episodes. It might have been the first one that you're going to have to take a look at this guy. By the end of it, he's going to put together a season, and he's going to clean things up compared to what his numbers were going in before. And I can say on a higher level, on a more of the kind of detailed measure of who really grew and who really evolved, not from just base man to pitcher now, but from pitcher to somebody who got better. Joe Doherty, you go back and look at it and said it, was, hey, anybody tracking this dude over the course of this summer is going to look at those one walk an inning, one punch out an inning. I say, no, you track him over the course of this summer. The delivery's clean. The intent's there. We grew and we bred him. We bred him to pitch at the back end. He didn't get those spots early on. You had to ease the guys into the 7th to the 8th. Oh, leverage situation. Joe went to 9th, and then he took that spot and came out and repeated the same stuff every single time. It was electric, and it was...
Stayed away from ego.
Stayed away from the ego. On that hairy at bat, it was big time up there talking about, no, don't go ego, man. Just pitch, be a pitcher. Yeah. To be able to control that adrenaline, to want to end the game like that against a hitter, the ego is going to step in and say, blow us doors. Yeah. Well, no, pitch. Make a pitch. Yep. Nice little tight slider, and that was what got him right there, man. Really good job of evolving into somebody that the dude he should be on somebody's radar. He should be on somebody's 60.
I think he's on. I guess he's on B White's radar. He's
already in here. He's already coming in.
Smart getting him locked in.
No,
beautiful.
Well, he was coming into camp. We weren't bringing him until March. Whenever we were down in Florida, we saw him last year in Schaumburg. I loved the guy out of the draft. I wanted him, and then he got picked right before we had the pick. Ended up getting released with Schaumburg with the walks issue. Then I see him up in Jersey over the off season. He showed good, but not great. Not what he is right now. I'm talking to him, hey, you need to go down to Florida. I want to check you out a little bit more. Finally convinced him. He went down there. And then even in Florida, whenever I finally signed him to bring him in, I thought it was going to be more of a guy that's going to compete for a spot, but wasn't sure if he was actually going to be able to take that spot. And then now it's like, this is a closer. This is a dude that we have in our hands right now. So the development, not just from... it was big within the 2 months that we were here, but seeing him because Chad had him in March for a little bit down in Florida, So whenever he had him down there, I got to work with him just a week and a half.
A week. He took some things, and it's like, well, we'll see what he works on these next couple months.
Right.
And then, hey.
And then he showed up here, and I was like, oh, wow, like, this guy needs to get picked up. He needs to get picked up and out of
Craig
here.
and Joe on the back end, if you got those dudes healthy next year, like,
Not fair.
it's not fair.
So a lot of
Welcome
pitchers,
by the way.
a lot of pitchers getting love in the most improved players. Maybe not a surprise for two guys with such illustrious backgrounds as pitching coaches, but Pelf, your most improved player.
I
in
can't.
2020.
I mean, I don't understand where we've gone here. I mean, you told each guy to pick the most improved player.
I know.
Mike doesn't pick anybody.
I know.
He sits on the
Shouldn't have
fence.
started with
I picked him.
I know.
Chad talks
Picked one.
about one guy, but then he has to go back and talk about another guy that wasn't mentioned. B.Y.'s talking about 5 different guys.
And this guy has made some big adjustments.
I mean, I don't know. My guy, I have one guy, but I'm gonna say a second one since they.
You got to be so dramatic about it.
You want to start talking about because it's hard because, like Mike said, everybody has gotten better in their own right. I mean, I could say Austin Rigg. I mean, there's so many guys I could talk about, but one guy for me, this one's more personal for me because I had him last year with Florence, and I think Brian will agree as well. Sean Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's
Another
different
pitcher.
guy, and I put a lot of that on Chad Rhoades for what he did because we tried to work with Sean, bringing him in out of college, and the numbers weren't very good, and I think we made him work out 3 times before we signed him, right? And he did okay for us last year. I know he was probably frustrated and probably questioning his career. I think he was questioning his career a little bit this year too, coming in. But man, his last 4 outings that I saw in this thing, lights out. The ball looked like, I don't know, something from Star Trek coming out of his hand to the plate, like a light beam, just boom. You know what I mean? It was incredible from the side seeing it, and I hadn't seen it from that side. But he has gotten a lot better, and I'm saying from last year to now. But I think in this short time span, because he had a little bit of an arm thing early, so we kind of backed him off, right? So he only, if he'd had this whole thing to pitch, it'd be crazy to see where he's at now. But I thought he did pretty well. But the guy for me that most improved, and this, it's hard to say to me. This guy's an affiliated guy, AJ Bumpus.
Oh, yeah.
Bump. He, when we lost him out of our lineup, we lost 6 out of the last 7 before the last series. And I'm not saying this because Bumpus was gone, but it changed that lineup. But that guy from day one, when he tried out, because I've never seen the kid play before, and he tried out, and I was like, he's okay, whatever. No, he's in the Reds organization. From day one of this Bourbon Trail, Battle of the Bourbon Trail, to now, obviously he didn't finish the year with us the last week to when he finished. He may be the best lefty-on-lefty hitter I've ever seen with what he does. But early in the season, I couldn't have said that. And the things that him and Mike were working on together, and he listened, and we freed him up a little bit. And I think when he went to the Reds, probably just like a lot of those players, those affiliated guys, they're pretty nervous, and they want to impress, and they want to. If you tell me to do this, and you're one of my coaches for the Reds organization, I'm going to do it. And whether it feels good or not. And I think we opened up a whole new world for him as far as being a baseball player, and like it was like a switch from like that first week, and then right after that, he became a totally different player,
100%.
Freed up everything, and he was a dangerous hitter in the box. So that's my guy.
Dynamite selections all around. Unfortunately, we are out of time on this part of the Game Report, episode 7. So we are going to step aside. Part 2 will be an all-star edition right here on the Y'alls Broadcasting Network.